Gouie's here. He's the newest Rivals 2 fighter, and one of the more complex ones at a higher level once you really break down his kit. But he's also a super beginner-friendly character as well, so I think that everyone has something to do with him. Today, I want to help you all get started with the new little puffball by giving you a quick little breakdown on all of his moves, which ones I think are good, and how I think they should probably be used. I also made a less structured video talking about Gouie last week and how I'm feeling on him. So if you feel like you need more Gouie guidance or tips after this video, go check that one out. Thanks tons, by the way, to Ether Studios for the early access. These videos could not be done without them and their generosity. Before we get into Gouie's moveset, I do want to break down some of Gouie's special mechanics first so that we're all on the same page. Gouie can eat an opponent with his neutral special or special pummel and become Big Gouie. Big Gouie is much heavier and moves a little slower than standard Gouie, but he also hits harder and has more range on a handful of options. To revert back to normal Gouie, you can press B again and release a slime shot. Big Gouie is great at higher and mid percents when you're trying to get a kill, or need extra range, or just maybe want a little bit more survivability. However, Big Gouie is a really risky option at lower percents, since he probably has one of, if not the worst disadvantage states in the game, the worst movement stats in the game, and I mean that big weight is definitely not giving you any favors if you're being hit. One more thing before we get into the moves, I want to look at Gouie's movement overall. I'll keep this and other sections that I talked about in my last Gouie video a little bit brief to just not waste your time too much, but Gouie's run speed is very slow. He doesn't really feel too clunky, but his wave dash also isn't great. However, on the flip side, his airspeed is pretty quick, and he has multiple jumps, so you can kind of mix up your landing timings and recoveries. You cannot mash jump to shoot up to the top lasso super fast, but you do get a lot of coverage with them. Big Gouie, as I mentioned, is a lot slower. I haven't edited this video, but I imagine I'll be jumping around with him on screen right now. He's kind of like a big King DDD type character. Let's go ahead and hop into the moveset though, starting with his grounded normals. Gouie's jab is pretty neat. Its third hit lifts both Gouie and his opponent into the air, allowing you to start air combos, juggles, and walk-offs. You can cancel this hit into an aerial as well, so it's pretty consistent, and in my opinion, it's probably the best jab 3 in the game. It's really unique, and I'm very curious what kind of shenanigans people can do with it. Up tilt is also a really good option here. It hits behind Gouie, kind of like a Puff or a Fox up tilt in Smash Bros. So you will need to turn around to get the full range on someone in front of you. It's really fast, and the angle it sends at is great for follow-ups, both at lower and higher percents. The only downside is this move is not necessarily really large above you, so you won't be anti-airing opponents with it compared to someone like Clarin or maybe like a Loxodon. But Gouie has other tools that do this, so it's not really the biggest issue. Next we have the down tilt. This move is kind of slow, not necessarily on startup, but the total length of the move is pretty long. So it's not really safe on shield, and you'll only really want to be pressing this in situations where up tilt might not be something that you're in range for, and if you're canceling out of jab and for some reason you want this one compared to the up tilt. I don't think this move is great, but it's also not bad. It does cover a good distance, and on this topic, dash attack is kind of similar here. It's a pretty lengthy move as well, so if you whiff it you are in big trouble, and you don't really get a ton of reward out of it, so I'd opt out of it for using other options in most scenarios. However, both of these moves are pretty huge as Big Gouie, and give Gouie a way to get a moving hitbox out, so I don't hate them. They do something new in his kit, but at close ranges I would probably pick kinda anything else. For our last tilt, we do have the forward tilt. This move is kinda similar to like an Orcane or Olympia F tilt, where it does solid knockback at higher percents, but doesn't really do a whole lot for combos at those lower percents, past maybe getting to like a tech chase whenever it knocks down. But even then, I'd still prefer clicking something like an up tilt or down tilt that would at least pop the opponent up, since Gouie is so strong in the air. Speaking of Gouie in the air though, let's go ahead and go over those. I pinky promise they're a lot stronger and more interesting than his grounded options. Actually, I actually lied to you, we're not going to aerials right now. I'm going to ask you to subscribe and use code LASTTALK. Only about 30% of my viewers are subscribed, and Gouie told me that if I don't get to 5k subscribers, he will shoot me with the gun that he keeps in his glove box. So pretty please hit that subscribe button. I'm really not sure who gave Gouie a gun. It doesn't really matter too much, let's not focus on that. Next though, let's get to the aerials like I promised. This is where a lot of the magic in Gouie's kit happens. It's definitely the strongest part of his kit, and my personal favorite aerial is the up air. You can use it to ladder, it kills at higher percents, and as Big Gooey it becomes very strong. If you use it close to the ground, you can scoop opponents and start a combo that way, and it also confirms out of moves like up tilt and jab 3, as well as up throw on some floatier fighters at super low percents, and forward throw since it sends them right above you. Next, we have back air. This one's really similar to Jigglypuff Bear and is actually great for poking at opponents or walking them to the blast zone. It feels so good to combo with at lower percents since it does kind of connect into itself on most DIs, and kill at the higher percents. On Big Gooey, this move is pretty large overall, making it great for taking stocks safely if you just want to poke at your opponent and then kind of drift away. The back air is also easy to place, since Gouie can turn around with a jump, so you can always be facing away from opponents while maintaining that nice forward momentum. I think forward air should naturally be talked about after back air. This move sends at a similar angle that Gouie can combo off of, especially if an opponent holds in. The move also does linger for a few frames, so if you're ledge guarding, let's say an opponent that has a jump or air dodge still, and you're not sure when they're going to use it, this move is a little bit more generous for catching options like that. In neutral, I think I do prefer back air right now. It feels safer overall since it's a little bit larger, and Big Gooey's forward air is notably smaller, so when I am Big Gooey, I also generally opt for the back air. We can talk about down air now. I know you guys have all been like gripping at the edge of your seat waiting for down air to be talked about, but there's a multi-hit drill where Gouie spins his little feet around. It doesn't spike unfortunately, but you can drag down kinda with it. It doesn't have a ton of hit stun, so it's not the most consistent, and you need to be really careful about how soon you land after the move. However, even if it's not the most optimal for a drag down, I think that having a multi-hit hitbox on a character as fast in the air like Gouie is really solid. Finally, we have the neutral air. Neutral air is a really fast on startup spin that knocks opponents back and can be continued on the ground by holding the attack button. This move feels really good, but it is kinda long in its full animation, similar to something like down tilt. So if you're landing on a shield with it, you'll need to mix in the second roll attack, which is still punishable, but at least you'll have some form of a built-in mix-up. This option feels really great for covering platform tech chases, and if Gouie slips off a ledge while using it, he will carry some of the momentum into the air, letting him push advantage in a way not too dissimilar to Rast or dash attack. This move also sets up for a really nice combo since of the knockback angle. I like this one overall a lot, however I do feel like since it is so long, you do have to be a little bit more mindful about where you press it. Moving on to Gouie's strongs, each of these are at least solid in my opinion since they do spawn goobers when they're halfway charged, and goobers shoot further or stay closer to you based on how much you charge them. Goobers become a grabbable item from strongs when they connect with an opponent, so you're able to mix up your neutral and play more of a projectile and item-based playstyle if you opt to use these. Downstrong is my personal favorite of these. It's pretty quick when not charged for goobers, and that breaks floor hug. So you have a way to navigate past lower percents more than just your grabs. The goobers shoot out of the sides, and they are floor huggable, but they're still great for poking at grounded opponents, or opponents recovering maybe horizontally to the ledge. Upstrong makes Gouie clap his little hands above his head. It's super cute and has really good knockback, but the move isn't huge. You probably won't be covering any platforms with this one, unfortunately, but you can catch opponents holding in on a handful of throws and moves with it. So it's by no means hard to use, its range just isn't the most generous outside of one of these confirms. Speaking of range, the goobers that spawn make a nice arc shape, so you can anti-air opponents with those, or poke at opponents off the ledge recovering by the wall. The longer you charge it, the higher they'll go, but they do despawn after a little bit, so you won't be able to cover super low recoveries with these. This might seem bad, you're probably thinking, man, like that sucks, I wish I could hit people in the bottom blast zone. But I think we should all say thank you to Dan for this. I'm not sure if I'd want to recover against a fighter with the airspeed and coverage that Gouie has, as well as a projectile that would cover the bottom part of the wall as well. Forward Strong is also great for poking at opponents with goobers, since it spawns two of them in front of Gouie that travel kind of in like a Angry Bird-esque trajectory, I don't really know what else to call it. Since there's two of these, if an opponent parries one, they collide and Gouie won't be hit by them. This move also has crazy style knockback. It's really strong, but not necessarily as fast as a move like Downstrong. In my matches, I normally do not respect my opponent. I don't like to think about anyone besides me, so I've been popped by this move a lot and have died really early for it. It's for sure an option you'll need to respect around higher and mid percents. Next, let's go ahead and talk about Gouie's throws before we move on to his specials. The specials are going to be the longest section of the video since they're all really unique and take a bit to explain. so I want to knock out everything else first before we get to that. Up throw is good for combos at lower percents. I have seen some people get out of it a handful of times though, and it's been the most consistent on floatier fighters and big bodies. However, since it does place you and your opponent so far from the ground, I only really like to use this as a mix-up, or on fighters that have a really hard time landing. As Big Gooey, this up throw kills pretty early compared to other throws, and it still kills as Little Gooey maybe around 150 on most of the casts. Platforms also help it kill earlier since you're going to be higher to the top blast zone, which is really sick. Forward throw sends at a similar angle to up throw, but keeps opponents a little bit closer and more above you. It does still pop them off the ground by a good amount, so it's really solid for combos, and overall it's better at comboing fighters that aren't going to be comboed by up throw, or at more middling percents where you kind of want to keep them to a closer space to you. I'd suggest if you're new to Gouie, using this throw first. It seems to be a little bit easier to get value out of compared to the up throw, but I've seen players get value from both. Next, we have the down throw. This throw sends opponents into tech situations at lower percents, but since Gouie isn't very fast on the ground, I'm not really sure if I'm a fan of this one. I don't hate it, since it's his only throw that does something like this, and I would always like to have the option of getting a tech chase out of a throw, but if I was tech chasing, I'd kind of want to be any other fighter and not Gouie. So while this option is good generally, I think getting value of it might be harder for the little goober friend. Fortunately though, this throw does have a better angle for comboing and kill confirms at higher percents, since it does keep opponents relatively close to you and in front of you. You can get some slime shots on some DIs out of it, so its full potential is only really seen later in a stock. Last, but of course not least, we do have the back throw. This throw sends at a really nasty low angle if you're near the ledge, which is really nice for ledge guarding against more linear or lacking recoveries. If you feel comfortable in your offstage skills, I'd suggest pressing this one starting at mid percents to fish for kills early. One tip if you're not super comfy in these scenarios is to keep your opponent offstage as long as you can, as you'll slowly whittle away at their resources and rack up damage. So even if they do get back, you've probably still earned a good chunk of extra credit. I don't have anywhere else to put this, but just a reminder that Gouie's special pummel makes him Big Gooey, and if he's Big Gooey, he's just going to place the mire and become normal. I'll talk more about the mire here in a minute, but I thought I should mention that here since we're in the throw section of the video. Speaking of moves that I haven't really had time to place in a video, I never really know where to put these. Gouie's get up attack is a cute little waddle with his hands. This is definitely one of my favorite animations in the game. He looks so happy to have been knocked down. His ledge attack is this quick little kick. His get up special is Gouie Cannon. Sometimes whenever I'm mad at someone, I shoot one of these at them, and if it connects, it'll leave a puddle of mire. And his ledge special is a sliding hit from the ledge in his Nido Cube form, which also leaves behind mire on hit. Speaking of mire though, let's break down what it is and what Gouie's other specials do. Down B, just like the ledge special, calls to Gouie's Nido Block form, and slams down similar to a Kirby down B in Smash Bros. This move will also leave behind a puddle of mire on hit, but if I have to be so honest with you, this move is just not great. You probably shouldn't press it a lot, but since Gouie has a slow fall speed, I guess that this is a way to descend a little faster if for some reason you're just not rocking with your elevation. Speaking of that mire puddle, we should probably go over it now. The mire is a little puddle of goo that Gouie can leave behind, with the moves that I just mentioned, as well as the big slime shot from Big Gooey. While the mire is active, the grabby hands will snatch an opponent that are near it. They'll be held in place similar to a League of Legends-esque route before dropping them into a knockdown state. Gouie can get so much mileage off of the mire, both with damage and combo starters. However, it can be parried by opponents similar to like Maple's pal Lily, so you gotta be careful with where you set it at. I said this in my other Gouie video, but I've been putting it on platforms and that's been working really well for me. It's easy to knock people into the platforms, letting mire reset your combo, and if they land on a platform with mire active, they become really limited on where they can go on that platform without being grabbed. Mire does deactivate after a short period of time, or after grabbing someone. But don't worry, you can refresh it or replace it with a thrown item. Luckily for Gouie, he does have an item in his kit. However, he does need to connect the goober from a strong or from an up B first, then grab it because it becomes an item then, and then put it into the mire for it to reactivate. It's a lot of steps, but it's easy in game, I pinky promise. Next, let's talk about Gouie's side special. Pressing the button just once gives Gouie a little dash in a direction, hitting opponents up similar to a Jigglypuff pound. However, it's pretty laggy, so it's tricky to get combos going off of it. Holding it for a bit slingshots Gouie backwards. You can cancel this slingshot into a move, and holding it extra long sends Gouie really far forwards again, really fast. This time you can jump cancel or cancel it into a move, giving him insane movement tech. I mentioned earlier that I never found his movement to be lacking, and this was because of this move overall. Because of it, you can close gaps really quickly with it, and get a move going. But unfortunately, since it does take so long to charge, you probably won't be catching anyone off guard with it unless they're really dumb. To be 100% transparent with you guys, I don't fully know how I feel about this move. I'm pretty sure that's the last thing you kind of want to hear from a moveset breakdown, but I've seen some players get really insane movement tech and combos going with it. But at the same time, I've seen some players get smacked just for pressing it to begin with, due to it being so committal. I could see this move being really strong in some matchups, and make Gouie really elusive or hard to hit, but I could also see this move being regulated to just being a recovery tool. It really depends on how players choose to use it, and what spots they're finding value in. And since I've only had a few play sessions with the little Goober Man, I can't really predict 100% sure where I think it'll land at, since it is so expressive and odd. Moving on to a move that's very straightforward and not odd at all, up special is a Yoshi Egg Toss-esque Goober Throw. It gives you a good bit of height the first time you press it in the air, so you can get things like up air out of it. If you hold down the button, your goobers are going to go a little bit further, but if you just tap the button, your goober will bounce on the ground, giving you a few different ways to angle this move and get different confirms out of it. You can also press this move while you're already holding a goober, since it is a special, letting you spawn a little goober army if you're connecting it multiple times in a row. This feels really strong in a lot of spots, since you're able to throw a handful of goobers and don't have to be overly careful with any one in particular, allowing you to cover a handful of different options. Finally, the last special is your neutral special. I touched on this one at the top of the video talking about Big Gouie mode, but this one is just a simple inhale. I really didn't think this move would go really a long way in his kit at all. Like, sure, it's funny I guess, you have a Kirby DDD-esque inhale, but those are really just not standout moves in Smash, so I assumed the same would apply here. But it actually gets you combos and kill confirms going as Big Gouie on hit, and since Big Gouie's disadvantage is so bad, being able to start your time as Big Gouie in an advantage state right away is really nice, since you can get extra value from him and then revert back to normal Gouie right away. This move gives Gouie a reliable command grab as well in the air, so he's able to kind of jump in on an opponent that might be ready to block an aerial, and then mix them with something completely new, giving him a lot more tools to work with on these approaches. Finally, I know that I've talked about it already a few times throughout the video, but if you're Big Gouie, your neutral special is the Slime Shot, this move can be comboed out of a few different options if your opponent holds in on them, and it has a ton of knockback. Whenever you connect the move, you do drop a puddle of mire, and you'll become Small Gouie even if you don't connect the option. It's overall a super good move. I think there's so much you can do with this one to just kind of like steal a kill on an unsuspecting opponent, or someone with a little bit whack DI. With all of Gouie's moves and mechanics out of the way, I do want to go over what I think is actually good in his kit, and where you might struggle a little bit whenever you're playing the little slime ball. Let's start with the high notes though, since those give context to the low notes, and they're a bit easier to summarize. First, his airspeed is great. As I mentioned, you can kind of go Dada mode off stage and reliably edgeguard and kill people at absurdly low percents. You can also rack up great damage this way, even on fighters that have really flexible and strong recoveries. His traps and items make up for his poor run speed on the ground, giving him ways to play slow and force opponents to make a move on him. And you can always simply jump to close gaps when you need to get an opening hit. However, this is where his first issue arises, since obviously, if you're only approaching opponents in the air as someone with the slower fall speed like Gouie, you lose access to tools like shield, parry, floor hug, and all of your grounded normals and grabs. This isn't as apparent on someone like Olympia or Absa, who have ways to jump at an opponent, and then quickly land on the ground via their fall speed or a double jump cancel tech option. But with someone that falls so slow like Gouie, you're going to be missing out on a handful of defensive options while you're engaging. So while your engagement tools in the air are good, you even have a powerful command grab, you also have an issue that arises where you're either forced to give up your speed by staying grounded, allowing you to be walled out by a good portion of the cast, or give up defensive options while in the air, also allowing a portion of the cast to simply step back and then wall you out. This issue snowballs alarmingly when you notice that Gouie has the lightest weight in the cast, meaning that any amount of damage for him is worse than other fighters, since 10% being done to Gouie might be an eighth of his stock, whereas if Gouie does 10% to another fighter, he's probably only securing about a 12th of their stock. The final big issue I've noticed in Gouie's kit is that his moves are really bad into floor hug. Only up tilt and up air start beating it a little under 30% from what I've noticed, so he does have to grab a lot. And while his grab game is fine, it's nowhere near a top level grab game, at least in my hands. Because of these issues, combined with him being able to spawn items and having a low base movement speed, I am concerned and pretty sure that his playstyle will lean into a campier approach. But I find the rest of Gouie's kit to be so engaging that I'm not really sure if this is the biggest issue for me personally, since when Gouie is scrapping, his tools are generally interesting, so I don't mind if he plays neutral a little slower, but I'm worried it might slow down a bit too much even then. With all of that out of the way though, that's my full breakdown of Gouie. He's playable right now in Rivals 2. Thanks tons to Ether Studios for the early access, and thank you to you for checking out the guide and using code LASTSTOCK. I'll be live with Gouie a few times over the next few days, so I hope to catch you in a stream in the channel, or in a bracket hosted in my Discord server, which is linked down below. Good luck with Gouie, have tons of fun gamers, and I'll see you in the next one.